Sorry.
He had the most enormous, and a college servant walked in. And so he said, C-O-C-K. It's just phenomenal snobbery, this idea that because he served wine, you wouldn't be able to work out what C-O-C-K spelled. I love that.
I was thinking when I was watching Gosford Park, it's a terrific movie, I said, what is going on here? Well, one of the things that's going on here is that Britain is being used to entertain America. It's a charade. The whole thing. Brilliant, cleverly organised charade. Do you feel that in Britain, in some way Britain has a very high cachet in America at the moment?
It does. It does. And I think we're as guilty as they are. We are and have been, if you're to believe a historian, probably since the 15th century, we've been primarily a middle-class country. You know, we have that Northern European burgomaster kind of identity and character. But it's the one part of
my experience, historians always say this when they're actually being a guest in a country house. If unbelievable magnificent. Sorry, I interrupted you. They're usually in Castle Howard or something.
Or middle class we are.
Yes, always been a middle class country. Charles, more port. Yes. Anyway, onward.
But we've never been interested in our middle classes. Yes. We deprecate them at best and scorn them, frankly, at worst. And most of us are actually secretly members of them. We like to distance ourselves from it. We say, well, actually, I'm bohemian. I'm a perpetual student. I'm déclassé in some way. But when it comes to drama and novels, films, we like to look at either the upper class or the lower class. We either like a damn good, Edward Bond thing of babies being thrown out of council flat windows.
Still true. Proletariat literature is still the missing element, even after.
Yeah, and maybe it's only in drama that we've had. There was a period where the curtain would rise on a Hampstead book-lined study,
So why are the Yanks so interested and thrilled in what they haven't got and don't need?
One of the things we can't do, but I don't know if this answers the question. One of the things British actors seem not to be able to do is to play what Americans call an ordinary Joe.
Yes.
You can't picture almost any of your favourite British actors, I should imagine, playing like this guy. He gets up, he drives his car, he drives along a motorway or a freeway or even an ordinary city street, and he goes into an office. Somehow you want to know his social context if he's British. Where did he go to school?
Yes.
What sort of person? What does he know? Is he, in America, it could be a Tom Cruise part, it could be a Johnny Depp part, whatever, and he's like this guy, and they accept that. And I think they miss what we miss. We miss having an ordinary guy. Britons can't be ordinary guys. It was J.G. Ballard who wrote a very good essay about British cinema being hopeless because the moment you put a camera somewhere, you wanted to know what comment it was making about what it was looking at in Britain, whereas in America it doesn't. A shot of a high-rise development in Chicago where people live is not a commentary on urban blight. In Britain, it's an Antonia Bird moment where you say Thatcher's Britain, Blair's Britain, or you say, "Oh, look at that! It's lovely. It's Tower Bridge. It's followed by Buckingham Palace, and it's heritage Britain." But we don't have much in between. I think Americans rather like the idea of this place in aspic that they, as it were, have left behind. Even if their surname is Koborowski, they still call it the old country, and they admire what they see as, I think perhaps to some extent correctly, what they see as the different relationship we have with language. I mean, we use words in a different way. I don't know that we think any quicker than Americans. I'm sure we don't.
This is providential, because I would have steered you towards this, because recently you were in the press for allegedly. In fact, let me hasten to say that I think you're much more right than wrong. I think there are some things that American actors do wonderfully, including speech.
Yes.
But you were saying that British actors were on the whole being overrated, especially when they played villains, simply because they handled the language so well. And that was to underrate American actors who actually handle it very well indeed, but don't sound as if they're doing so.
Exactly. And I didn't actually say I thought we did, that Americans were fooled. I just said is there a chance that they are?
You put your head
it's
right.
worth looking at it. I put my head
you
way
put your
above.
head right on the block.
I did. But
that's okay. No, I think you're making a valid point. I get into trouble for making the same point all the time. I say it more rudely and say that British actors, there won't be a British actor who can play the character like Andy Sipowicz in NYPD Blue. It's not going to happen. The British equivalent is a bald-headed guy who sounds as if he's been ramming his head against a pub wall for 10 years, who actually mugs with his voice as well as his face. Yeah. I don't think we've got people who can do that.
And actually, often Americans are more daring. We accuse them of as actors somehow having a kind of vanity where they can't play anybody unpleasant. But if you look at someone like, Toby Ziegler in The West Wing, his affect is constantly morose and unpleasant, and yet the affection you feel for him, and it's you bring that to him. He apparently doesn't ask to be loved, ask to be liked, ask to be admired.
There's no annotation on it of I'm really charming.
And how do I know so much about him? How do I know about his integrity? How do I almost know about his childhood? Just from the way he stands there looking glum with a cup of coffee in his hand.
In The West Wing, let's stay on The West Wing, the clever are unashamedly clever at high speed, to the point where you and I we
couldn't come close.
Can't barely understand them. Yeah,
oh, that's right.
I have to ask my daughters what did Donna just say. Yes. So in many ways the Yanks are miles ahead. So there's something else they're after. I think they're probably after a structured, what they see as a structured hieratic society, and paradoxically, ironically, as they would say, they've chosen the very moment when it's actually disappearing from Britain.
Yes, and also paradoxically, of course, they have it to a much greater degree than we do. Not everywhere, but in the big cities, if you want to feel like a kind of modern-day Bertie Wooster, a kind of pampered person who's called Sir a lot, go to America, don't go to London. Don't go to Mayfair, don't go to the Ritz, don't go to the Savoy. Go to an Upper East Side New York place and see the white-gloved servants.
Anywhere between 70th and 80th Street on the East Side.
Absolutely, that's right, yeah, between Madison and Park and Lexington, around that area.
Because you'll meet Charles in every...
You won't be able to get in a lift without someone opening the lift for you, carrying your parcels, and as an Englishman, you'll feel embarrassed because you won't know... How do I do this? Do I tip him? We're actually hopeless. We don't know what it's like to have.
But the guy who does that for you won't resent you and won't be selling his memoirs.
Exactly.
It's resentments that's missing because anybody can do it. Anybody who can get the money can have it. Incidentally, I would be jealous of Hugh Laurie's salary, but then on the other hand, I understand, as you understand, that one of the conditions of giving him that much money is they never give him any time to spend it.
Yes, so right, and I'm not jealous of him. I'm proud of him. I love him. He's my best friend, and I'm so thrilled. He's finally been regarded as the wonderful actor I always knew he was.
The price is to work for 6-7 days a week.
I've seen him. Yeah, the television thing I did was literally the set next door to his on the Fox lot in LA, and I've stayed at his apartment many times, and I see what he...
Eddie Izzard's doing exactly the same thing now. And he's disappearing into this series. His life is going into it. Do you have any urge to do that?
Not at all. They actually asked me very sweetly if I would do a whole series of this thing I guested on. Because I did one, and then they asked for another 2, and then I said, could I do the rest of the series? And then would I be interested in doing the series next year? And I'm not saying I would have reached anything like the heights that Hugh did anyway, partly because I'm not as good looking as Hugh, and he's just aside from the talent. No, let's be honest.
Let's not get into aesthetic arguments.
But I just seen what it's done to him. I'm not giving gospel away about it having done something terrible to him, by any means. I just see how hard the work is. I mean, he's far too gracious to complain about it, because after all, you can't complain if they throw that much money at you and you then complain. People think you're a complete, graceless imp.
Well, the whole bunch of you overwork. Emma overworks. She always has.
She does, yeah. It's a bit like, was it Lee Trevino, was it Gary Player? It's variously attributed. When he was driving off the tee once and someone from the crowd behind said, God, you're lucky to have a swing like that. And he said, yeah, it's crazy. The more I practice, the luckier I get. Yeah. And people don't want to know that.
No, they don't.
And now never more so in our culture. If you tell someone, yes, I can tell you where the Golden Palace is, and I can tell you how to get there. It's a very long, hard climb, though. And you will blister your knees, and you will hurt yourself, and you will fall down and have to start climbing again. They go, oh, in that case, I don't want it. But you're so lucky to get there. Well, and I'm not saying I've got to the Golden Palace, but all I'm saying is what attributes I have are ones that I've worked at and run towards with enthusiasm, and people now seem to think not only that it's unfair, but that it's their right to be given it without making the same journey. And that'll never happen on this earth. And I liken it to gold in that sense, that gold exists. It is real. I've held it, and I've got the odd thing made of it. Very, very little, but the odd thing. I know it exists, and I also know that the only way to get it is to know a huge amount about geology and about quartz and about mother lodes and then to get down and either yourself personally, if you imagine yourself as a prospector, panning for it and doing the whole Walter Houston thing with Humphrey Bogart, looking for it, breaking your bones in your body and then boiling your skin as you smelt it, and then gold will come.